What is going on, everybody? This is Jackson from JD Sports Zone and Dinger Dudes, and today I have a very special interview with former Red Sox organization pitcher, former MLB coach, and current performance coach, Mr. Mike McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this interview. Truly an honor to get the opportunity to speak with you. How's your day going?
Going great, Jackson. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to chatting with you.
I'm super excited to have you on. Now, I want to start from the beginning of your baseball career, even before the Boston Red Sox. I want to start at the beginning with for your love of baseball. What drew you to baseball originally? Because obviously, you ended up playing in the Red Sox organization for a multitude of years, and then you ended up coaching at the major league level. Did you ever think it would get to a point where you actually played professionally in an organization or even coaching at the MLB level? What drew you to baseball?
Oh, I thought there was no chance I'd ever make it, man. And I look back on when I was younger. I grew up in the Bay Area of California. I remember going to A's games. It'd be like Little League Day. You go out there for like $9. You get a hot dog. You spill it all over your shirt. You're just a little kid, and you look out on the field. And you're like, man, like there's how do these guys throw the ball and hit each other in the chest and run the bases so fast, and just had this fascination with it. But growing up there, I never thought that I'd ever end up coaching for the Oakland A's or for the Atlanta Braves or any of the major league teams I've been with. And yeah, I started off as I was a D3 pre-med student, just walked on a D3 school, wanted to go to medical school and go from there, help people through being a doctor. I had oral cancer as a kid and just these adverse circumstances. I felt, man, I would love to help other people. And through that process, I got a little bit better. Went and played summer ball in the Northwest and had a really good summer ball season against Oregon State guys, Washington. And I just realized there was more meat on that bone. I was like, man, I've got more here. And so I ended up transferring to school, Cal State Bakersfield. We literally didn't have a field. It was the first year of a D1 program, first year of the program period. We laid our own sod on the field. I was, taking classes, dissecting cats and learning anatomy of the body. And I walked on there. I mowed lawns. I packed mounds. Wasn't even on the team the first year. And then my senior year, I was an All-American and got drafted by the Red Sox and played my 6.5 years in the minor leagues to AAA with Xander Bogaerts, Mookie Betts, guys like that, and then started coaching in 2018. And so worked 7 years as a coach, and now I work as a performance coach, working as a consult for players in the psychosomatic relationship with the mind body.
That's awesome to hear. And it's almost like a full circle moment for you because you grew up obviously an Oakland Athletics fan, getting the opportunity
Yeah.
later on in your career to be a coach for the Oakland Athletics in that 2023 season. And I love hearing stories about, going from JUCO to D1 and hearing baseball growth and journey and transitional stories. So it's great to hear that perspective from you. And obviously, you talked about going from making the jump from a player to being a coach at the major league level. What was that first season like in the coaching realm for you from the other side of the fence? Obviously, you have a player regimen, having a day-to-day schedule as a baseball player. But what was it like, and what was the biggest adjustment for you going from a player to a coach?
I would say the biggest adjustments that I went through was realizing that I knew more about the game than I thought I did. I thought that I thought that I was going to need to like reinvent myself and like suddenly change who I was. I think a lot of coaches go through that experience, and that's really challenging for them because they feel like they need to be. I got to be a coach now. But one of the things I realized is authentic relationships transcend player, coach, trainer, strength coach, GM. All those relationships can still be authentic, and if you show up authentically in your life, the players feel that and they appreciate that. And so I know from my own experience, I just try to say, you know what, I'm going to show up and be the best version of myself I can be, have honest relationships with them, and say, what would I have wanted as a player now that I'm a coach? Hey, I'd want transparency. I would want honesty. I would want somebody that tells me the best information they have possible. And they give me a sense of clarity so I know what I need to go work on, as adverse to feeling like I need to tiptoe around as a coach. Like, no, just be transparent with the players, with the front office, with your GMs, et cetera. And people will meet you in that space. So, as anything in life, authenticity is king. And I think when became a coach, I didn't realize that was something that I could just carry with me. Something I always had as a player, but once I started coaching, I was like, man, just keep being yourself. And it was a really powerful feeling because I felt like I changed so many lives and I continue to have a big impact on them.
That's awesome to hear your perspective and obviously your experience in the game like that. And you see like a lot of organizations who have managers who are personable player coaches, such as for example, you have Alex Cora, who has really built up the Boston Red Sox organization. Obviously, he played in the major leagues and he has the kind of understanding of where the players are coming from. And then you see in other organizations who maybe don't have a manager as a player coach or has that personable, authentic connection, as you mentioned, and their organization or team just doesn't have compatibility and stuff like that. So
Mm,
it's great to hear your personal experience, obviously from a coaching standpoint from that. Now, I want to kind of get into more on the pitching coach side and just pitching in general. Obviously, in
yeah.
today's game, you see a huge evolution in spin rates, biomechanics, and all the new technological stuff that they use in today's game. Like, for example, the ABS ball strike system. I want to ask you your approach and your opinion on that as you've seen the game develop.
Yeah. I'll say this, like one of the best compliments I ever got from a player was, Mac, you're a nerd trapped in an athlete's body. And I thought that was pretty good. I've embraced analytics data from that standpoint. One of the things I tell people is that if you we have my family and I own a 66 Mustang, right? Carburetor, 3 speed, nothing crazy, right? It's an old 289. There's no computers, there's no analytics, there's nowhere to plug a chip into, or anything like that. There's no decoding. But that technology is still relevant. There's still four tires, there's still an internal combustion engine, there's still a V8, so many pieces of the exact same. But now we have a little bit of new information in terms of being able to use computers to understand how much power is going to each tire, how the tires are creating torque and as they go around turns. When we need, like, you look at F1, right? When they need soft tires, hard tires, et cetera. Now they work off electricity and fuel. They have a hybridization. That same thing is going on in baseball. We're just understanding how to take everything we've always had, the grit, the toughness, the hard-nosed focus, the team strategy, et cetera, and apply a little bit of new age information to it with understanding of how the vertical movement of the pitch moves, the horizontal movement, how we can move spin by just adjusting the ball a little bit on the grit, create more seam shifted weight. All those things are little pieces. They're just helping progress the game forward. Like anything, like any technology, like your cell phone, like computers, how you use it matters. And so if you are used to driving a 66 Mustang, jumping in a new Tesla Model S is going to be really challenging. But if you've progressed over time to newer cars that have had screens and computers and voice activation, it'll be much easier to progress into a Tesla. So I think it's just a matter of where you are on that continuum and what your exposure has been. And then we meet the player where they're at. And I try to walk them through the experience. Hey, if they're at a 1980 Oldsmobile, cool, let's walk them through and get them in the 90s and 2000s. Not to overuse that example, but I think that can really help guys is meet them where they're at, help show them how we can make them better through some new technology and information, and then help them understand what makes you really good at what you do. And hey, maybe where are some of your flaws that we can help you with.
It's great to hear, like, that's an amazing analogy, by the way. It's great to hear the review
First
on
time
the
using it, so I'll try to carry it with me.
I think it's an analogy you should use in the future.
Perfect.
I think that's phenomenal. But you talk about the adaptations to obviously the new technology in today's game. Like, I know a lot of people have mixed reactions. I feel like it varies on generations. Like, obviously, the newer age guys, like I'm 21 years old. I'm a senior in college, and a lot of people have, even my age, have mixed reactions on the whole ABS system and obviously new age and technology. And then older generations, like I was having a conversation with my grandfather the other day. He was talking about he's in his 80s. He doesn't like the whole ABS strike system. He likes the whole
Mm,
personal umpire. I mean, like names as CB Buckner, Angel Hernandez, and stuff like that. I
yeah.
mean, you don't know those names for being good umpires. You just don't.
Yeah.
Like it's great to hear, like, because obviously you've had experience in the game with adaptions to the
Mhm.
new stat cast and the new cast and all the technologies with that. And I kind of want to divert a little bit more into the pitching coach realm. I mean, every
Yeah.
coach has a light bulb story, has a story that kind of sticks with them during their coaching career. Obviously, you've been part of the organizations like the Braves organization, Twins, Athletics. Red Sox as a player. I want to ask you, is there a coaching moment or breakthrough story that kind of sticks with you in your mind during your career?
Yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate to work with some amazing players, right? Like to see the evolution of Griffin Jacks is probably one of my favorite ones, right? Griffin's 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, 180 pounds. I mean, but Griff was, an early draft pick in 2019. He came to Rochester, New York, right? And I remember he pitched a game in Indianapolis, no, Louisville, I think, and Louisville. I remember it was like 88, 91. It's like the breaking ball wasn't very good. The changeup was okay. Like, and I remember talking to our pitching coordinator, Pete Mackey, who's now the pitching coach for the Twins, and saying, Pete, like, man, dude, I don't know if he can do it, man. Like, I feel bad. We're using big league balls. Ball flies a little more, has less movement because it's not, the seams are shorter, they're smaller. And I just remember that feeling like, God, man, this is just tough. And I remember Griff and I had a conversation after that, after the season in 2020, where we're going through COVID. We're doing remote coaching. We're learning how to use technology. And Griff was just kind of, wasn't quite as good as he could be. And I remember talking about it. I said, Griff, like, you have this opportunity to be really special, or you can be like I was. You can throw high 80s, low 90s, be a guy that never happened, hopefully like scratch a cup of coffee in the big leagues, but you'll never turn into the best version of you. I remember using myself as a bit of an embarrassment story of what I could have been if I'd gotten training or thought that way. We weren't really entrepreneurial with it. We were people that just walked the line, did whatever the coaches said. And it was the Red Sox. Why would you ever challenge them? But I realized I needed to get more entrepreneurial with my thought on how I moved, how I lift, how I stretch, how I work my body. And so Griff did. Griff dug in, and man, that guy worked as hard as anybody's ever seen. And he evolved all of a sudden in 2020. He comes to the alt side, I think, at the end. But I know in 2021, all of a sudden you see 91, 94, and then you see 94, 96, and all of a sudden you're seeing him throw sliders at 91. And they're some of the best breaking balls in baseball. Now he's got a splitter. He's got his fastballs at 97, 98. Seeing him evolve was beautiful. I loved that. And that was early in my career. And then kind of at the back end, like last year or 2024 season, remember being in spring training and Chris Sale was struggling. I mean, spraying balls side to side, struggling with command. His velo's down 91, 93. And I mean, I remember him taking a bat to a trash can and just beating the crud out of it. And he was just so frustrated. And I remember I talked to Rick Kranitz and like had these conversations. So I ended up showing, Chris, I said, hey, like, here's you throw 91, here's you throw 99 in the playoffs. What's the gap? He's like, why am I going behind the left-handed batter's box? Why aren't I driving down the left like this way? I was like, let's work on it. And sometimes just something that simple, like showing them what you're at now and where you were, gets them back online. And so working with Rick, working with Chris, to help him turn things around and turn into what he did last year in 2024, those moments are powerful. And for me, like when I see those little moments that we're just paying attention, we're working with guys, we're focusing on how can we help them and meeting the player where they're at are the moments that are most special to me. So there's, dozens of them throughout my career, Johan Duran and Bailey Ober and these guys, Mason Miller and these guys have huge success I've gotten to work with. But those two really stand out kind of at the beginning of my career, coach, and then more recently with Chris.
That's great to hear those breakthrough stories. And obviously, Griffin Jacks is one of the top relievers in all of MLB baseball. Chris Sale has had a long, illustrious career, probably going to be a future Hall of Famer. And I would say, I guess
Yeah,
you to thank for
yeah,
that. I'm a Cardinals fan. We don't play the Braves a lot
yeah.
during through the season. But I guess I can thank you for having Chris Sale dominate us every season whenever he plays. But so, you talk big on the mental side of pitching, and mental side of pitching is very, very huge. And I've had a lot of conversations, as before we discussed before the interview started, with like Ty Buttrey, Jake McGee on the mental side of
Yeah.
baseball. And I want to ask you, obviously, as a pitching coach, when a guy's having a rough stretch or maybe getting lit up one night, putting up 5, 6 earned runs, what do you do to kind of, I guess, correlate with them and like talk with them on how can they better their mentality, especially when it comes to being on a big league mound.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the fun part about this, like I coach or my coach in college played or coached for Augie Garrido, who worked a lot with Ken Ravizza. And so the early stages of the mental performance game. he taught that a lot to us in college and was a true blessing. Bill Kernan's a legend in college baseball. And then as I went into my playing career, I learned a lot more about the biomechanics side, the physical side, got into coaching. And so I was blending my career with what I'd learned before. So then this past year, I took classes on executive coaching, more for the executive side of things. I have an MBA that I work with on the business side. And then I started working with Brian Kane as a mental performance coach. And so I went through his program, started working with athletes from the major leagues down to high school. And so I learned a lot more about the infrastructure of how to apply my career as a coach and a player to help guys through a structured program or more curriculum based. So blending that all together, I realized a lot of the things that we're seeing on the performance psychology space from guys like Justin Sua and Brian Kane, Michael Gervais, et cetera. Really, you're seeing those things. We see them on the field. We just don't know how to describe them. We don't have words for them or vocabulary to match. Now that we're blending those together, really having a lot more success. And so there's been countless experiences throughout my career where I realized I was doing a lot of the work we see on the performance psychology side. We just didn't know how to apply words to it. We didn't have a curriculum or like a direction for it. Now we're able to create very clear ways and paths forward to building confidence. But what's the difference between confidence and conviction? And how do we help a player find both of those? Confidence is the ability to do something. Conviction is the knowledge is going to happen right here in this moment. How do we build that conviction up? Because most guys know they can do something well, but they're struggling with the here and now. And so we work a lot on that in that space. So between that, journaling, bookends, even working on diet, nutrition, sleep, things with family, friends, girlfriends, wives, kids, etc. All those things matter because the athletes are humans and they're holistic beings. So we really try to focus on the mental side. And then obviously, when you know that your body's moving as well as it can, strength conditioning wise, delivery wise, etc., you know you're the biggest, baddest dude on the field. Now you can go out and be your best self. But when you know something's wrong, just like when you're sick, you got a stomach ache, you got a headache, you got ears ringing, you're not quite your best self. The athletes are the same way. When they've got something going on mentally or physically, it ails them a little bit, pulls them back from being their best self. It's also what's so impressive is even with, the Michael Jordan flu game, et cetera, Kurt Schilling's, bleeding sock, there's these huge stories. Every guy goes through something every day, just like all of us do every day. None of us have 365 great days a year. All of us have, a few hundred, 100 good days, 100 really bad days, and then, say 165 somewhere in the middle. And the players go through that same ebb and flow, just like all of us.
It's always great to hear that viewpoint, especially from the mental side of baseball. And I feel like from a fan's perspective, it doesn't really get talked about a lot because obviously you have a physical regimen with workouts, and obviously there's going to be bumps in the road. But obviously, most times it's not about the destination, it's about the journey and how it takes for you to get there. I love applying my own analogies when I do these interviews
Yeah.
as well. So it's great to hear that, especially from a pitching coach standpoint, who's had an illustrious career like yours. Now, I actually want to flip it to a little bit something fun. I love asking fun and interactive questions. And obviously, you've been a pitching
Yeah.
coach for many, many years post playing career, and you were a professional pitcher yourself. Would you build what traits from different pitchers that you've had the opportunity to coach? Would you put together in building the perfect pitcher in your
Mm.
eyes?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Let's see. I would take Mason Miller's physical ability, right? Just the raw physicality that he has. It's incredible. I would take Spencer Strider's work ethic, knowledge of self, and in terms of recovery, in terms of nutrition, in terms of everything he does, is as dialed as I've ever seen. Uh, Chris Sale's intensity and competitiveness, right? There's no bigger dog in that fight than Chris Sale. Just not a guy you want to cross for sure. And then Max Fried's strategy, right? Max is a really strategic thinker and really thinking ahead of a lot of things. Very knowledgeable in the deep space about what he wants to do, what he wants to work on, how he wants to approach hitters. And so if I could think of, yeah, a very holistic athlete, that would be the very holistic pitcher that I would describe.
That sounds like a Cy Young winner and a future MLB Hall of Famer to me. So it's really cool to
That sounds
hear
like a
about.
cheat code on your video game. Yeah,
Oh, it does. It's really cool to hear, obviously,
yeah.
all the notable names and that you've had the opportunity to coach throughout
Mm.
the years. And I feel like Mason Miller, Chris Sale, Max Fried are all like amazing names that you speak upon. And I would hate to face that pitcher as a batter personally for me.
Yeah.
Now, I have two more questions for you. Another fun question, personally for yourself. Obviously, you've been around a lot of clubhouses, Boston Red Sox, Oakland Athletics, Minnesota Twins, Atlanta Braves, and stuff like that. Who's the funniest or most memorable personality throughout either your playing career or coaching
Mm,
career that you would like to share out to the viewers?
funniest would be a tough one. I'm trying to think. I'll go with there. Uh, I mean, I would say one of the guys that is probably the most memorable was actually a coach. His name's Stu Cliburn.
Mm.
And Stu, I worked with in AAA Rochester, and all the guys that listen to this are gonna love it. Anybody that knows Stu will just die laughing. We call them Stuisms, right? So Stu had this white uh, binder paper, right? There's a notepad, right, that he would write on. And he'd write down all these like one-liners he had. So he had like the little white ball speech. And so he'd carry this white ball around, and it was baseball, but he'd say, "This little white ball will make you cry," right? And he will talk about like how amazing it is, but it'll also make you a lot of money. It'll also make you successful. And like he had this beautiful speech he would tell in front of the entire clubhouse in Minnesota and in big league camp every year. And so every guy knows it. Torrey Hunter, LaTroy Hawkins, like Joe Mauer, they all know the speech. And Stu is one of those guys, though. He always had a one-liner for everything, right? And so these little one-liners you had, guys will still know them. So if you ever meet a player that knows Stu and you drop a couple one-liners, they'll start dying laughing and they'll spit a couple back at you. It's great. And it keeps guys connected. So I would say, Stu's probably the most memorable guy from that standpoint inside of a clubhouse that understood how to have a great time. And then player-wise, I mean, there's guys like Brian Dozier that were hilarious. There's guys like Tyler Duffy, always was goofing around, making fun, cracking jokes with guys. So there's plenty of funny guys over the years, but I think Stu Cliver might be the most memorable.
That's awesome to hear. Now, I have a bunch of like one-liners myself. Unfortunately, I don't have them orchestrated into a white binder or
Yeah.
playbook. They don't hit most of the time, but it's great that you personally had a guy
That's
around you who was always throwing and cracking jokes, especially in like situations like those, because you got to have fun as a player or a coach,
yeah.
especially throughout your career in the rough roads. Now, the final question for you, Mr. McCarthy. Finally, the big picture. Obviously, we talk about the evolution with ABS strike system and mechanics and stuff like that as a pitching coach, and just for future generations down the road. What do you hope to see change or maybe improve in the MLB pitching game or just pitching game in general at any sort of level, and how young players approach development, mindset, or even just overall team atmosphere, like teamwork?
Hmm. Yeah, I think, well, a couple things. I think one is societally, right? We're very technology focused, right? We're all using technology at higher rates than we ever have before. And it's only going to accelerate. So the way that we learn a relationship with our technology is crucial. Our cell phones, our laptops, our iPads, et cetera. Uh, Use of technology can be really beneficial. Learn how to use it, embrace it. Don't deny it, don't push it away, but also understand when, where, and how. And then build your own constraints around it. Like, when am I going to use it? Where am I going to use it? How am I going to use it? I think for a lot of players, the technology is either a yes or a no. We're very bimodal about it. I would ask people to say it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. If you deny it, just like teaching a child how to drive, right? Teach them like the rules of the road when they're 13, when they're 14, when they're 15. My dad did that. I mean, I knew the rules of the road before I ever took a driving test, the written test, anything. I sat down with a book. I was like, I already know this stuff. So my dad was always teaching me, but he layered it on over years as a firefighter paramedic. He just knew the importance of safety. I think that same thing with technology. I think as we go through this process, like embrace the technology. It doesn't mean you have to coach from the technology only. Everything that baseball guys know, coaches, parents, etc., is still relevant. I can't tell you how often players come to me. I sit down with them on Zoom calls. I work with big league guys, minor league guys, college guys, etc. And they say, Mac, I've never had somebody explain it to me in a way that makes sense like you are right now. And like that's just because we don't know it. We either just read off all the information and think that's going to translate it, or we just say none of that information matters. Here's the old school approach. Learn to embrace it, learn to interpret it. And I think there's a term in business called KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And that's really valuable. I think that the simpler you can make it. So I try to limit almost everything to three things. Now, most guys that hear this are going to laugh. They're like, Mac knows how to, he can talk, right? And that's true, right? I always try to give them the thorough version. But one of the things I tell guys is give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime, right? A notorious proverb we've had for a long time. I do that because I want them to understand the information. And they don't have to understand a high level. They don't need to know Magnus Force versus seam shift awake, anything else. But if they understand the why and how it applies to them, they're now their own best coach and they progress forward. If I just tell them what to do and they lose it, they don't know where to go for it. And so when we teach guys, just like young players, teach them what's going on, help them embrace it, understand it, so they can take it with them no matter where they go. Most guys in pro ball are going to have a dozen, maybe 2 dozen pitching coaches in their lifetime. And so the goal is just to leave them better than you found them by helping them progress forward just a little bit. And I try to do that every day whenever we talk about things and apply these types of technologies and new information.
That's great advice to hear. And I obviously think that it can be applied to not just sports in general, but obviously any sort of occupation, obviously adaptations to one's mindset and kind of finding within yourself. And then obviously adaptations to technological devices such as phones, AI, and stuff like that. But it's great to hear all this advice and amazing experiences from your playing and coaching career, Mr. McCarthy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this interview. I hope you have an amazing day. This episode will probably be up around 7 p.m. when I get done editing it. So, but thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy work schedule to do this interview and have a conversation with me.
Happy to, Jackson. Thanks so much and good luck with the rest of school.